Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Behind the Green Screen. As you can see, there's no green screen behind me. And I know it's boggling your mind that I got another one of these episodes out just after putting out episode 16. But don't be too impressed because I had recorded that footage a while ago and I just finally got around to editing it. So actually, I'm kind of back on track. In any event, so for this episode, I am doing something different. Well, you've noticed with the last episode, I sort of I start incorporating B footage, right? You know that footage. Let me try this again. So you notice that I've been incorporating footage like from the street. I think they call it B-roll, in which you get like background stuff or whatever it's called. That's what I've been doing, and I've been incorporating it into my episode because I know how to edit in Adobe Premiere Pro, which is what I use to edit these episodes. And I do know all the tricks, but I'm so lazy sometimes that I don't really employ all the tricks that I know how to do in Premiere Pro. And that includes editing in B-roll footage, and making it kind of sort of smooth. It wasn't agreeable with me the last time I did it. I'm hoping it'll be more agreeable this time. We'll see. But the for this episode, I'm kind of excited about it, and I think that's why I'm jumping in front of the camera and I'm doing the full Betty and the whole 9 yards. Is because I had a very interesting Saturday, and it all started. And I can't even do a picture it. Well, yeah, I can picture it last week, and I'm on Instagram as usual, and I'm scrolling, doomsday scrolling lately. And I follow the Folger Shakespeare Library. Now, again, I want to impart on the fact that there is so much to do in this area that you would think that I have seen all of it by now, but I haven't because it's spread out everywhere. And, you don't really know what's out there until something, pops up. And for me, this popped up on my feed, the Folger Shakespeare Library, because I follow another influencer. She's called DC Bestie. And she like, here's stuff to do for the weekend, and here's it's free, or there's a slight cover charge or whatever. And she's always great with putting out all kinds of cool stuff that's happening. And so from following your DC Bestie is how I found out about the Folger Shakespeare Library, which is why I started following it. So last week, Folger Shakespeare Library puts out a post that makes me go, ding, another museum to visit, right? Now, I will. So the post that they put out is they're looking for docents. So that immediately caught my attention. Yes, Lisa is already a docent at SAM and the Renwick Gallery, but there is nothing that says that I can't be a docent elsewhere, right? And again, this is about donating my time. So it's not like I have to, of course, there are hours that you have to fulfill for the month if you want to be a good volunteer, but it's not a very demanding demand on my time, which is why I can add this sort of volunteer work to my arsenal of stuff, of me sort of helping myself to acclimate down here. And it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. So from that post by the Folger Shakespeare Library, I said, yeah, that's what I'll do this weekend. I'll go and I'll visit a museum. So just so you know, for the Folger Shakespeare Library, they do recommend a donation because it is a private museum. It's privately funded. It's not under the Smithsonian. So if you want to go and go to visit, there's a $15 donation, and it's called a donation, and that's the minimum. If you want to donate more, feel free. They can use it. All museums can use it now. So I go and I get my tickets, and I take the metro, of course. And I've been in this section of DC before because I've been to the Library of Congress. You know what? Hold on one second. Oh no, never mind. It's good. All right, never mind. So I've been to the Library of Congress. So I've been in that section of DC because right across from the Library of Congress is the Capitol building, the U.S. Capitol building. And I am still orienting myself to DC, where everything is in relation to each other, right? So I went to the Folger Library. Didn't really realize where I was, that pocket of DC, until that day. But let me not jump too far ahead of my story. So I get off at my stop, which is I think it's called Capitol. I forget the name of the stop, but it's inconsequential. So I go to the library, and it's a beautiful walk from the metro station stop, because you go through old section near the Capitol where they have these like row of brownstone, what I would call brownstone buildings, because they're row houses, basically, like you would see in Brooklyn, built by the Dutch, blah 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 blah. So they have these beautiful historic row houses, and there's a church on the corner, and I remember I had to make a left to go to the Folger Library. And I finally find it, and this is the library. And it's a in your face building, but it's very nondescript at the same time. And the fact that it's mixed in with the residential kind of makes it like really interesting to me anyway, that it's so mixed with residential. So you can see the front here, and then but here's the front of it, but you don't go through the front, because there was a front at one time. It's called the carriage. I think it's called the Carriage House, where people, if they wanted to visit, like visiting dignitaries, would come in through the Carriage House. But now that's not where you come in. You come in through this entrance, which has a wildflower garden that has flowers that are mentioned, and plants that are mentioned in Shakespeare's plays. Yeah, that is pretty cool, isn't that? So there's the fountain, and then there's that quote you see right there on the slab right there, and then there's the entrance. So there's 3 floors to the building. It's very you don't realize it, because from the outside it looks like it's just maybe 2 or 3, but there really is, and it's very interesting. There are 3 floors, but you're basically coming in. The entrance is coming in through what would be the lower level, or the bottom or the basement level, and then you go up. So I learned things about the Shakespeare that I didn't know before. So it was a win-win for me, even though I was going there to see what I was getting into. If I were to go forward with being a docent there, I wanted to see what they got. Now, let me backtrack a little bit. Excuse me. So there are 2 books that I want to focus on for this episode. And one of them, I want to tee it up a little bit so that you can understand how DC is laid out, because I'm still trying to like work it all out. And but it's very interesting how this all Pierre or Peter L'Enfant was really a genius. Really was a genius. Okay, so when I first got down here, the first summer that I was here, I started to explore the area, and because I was terrified, I'm going to admit that right now. I don't know this area. I'm moving here by myself for the first time. And so there was a lot of anxiety going into DC. And I figured the best way to quell that anxiety and be more confident and get more familiar with this area was to go exploring. Number one thing on the agenda was to take the metro. Now, listen, I'm a New Yorker. I was raised on the New York subway system, so I shouldn't be afraid, right? But still, this is a new system. I don't know the stops. I don't know anything. I don't know how these lines work. I did some research. Naturally, I looked into it to understand how the system worked. But still, and I happened to pick a particular weekend in which they were doing maintenance on the tracks. So they had closed down certain sections, certain stations. So they had buses running to take you to where you needed to go. So that sort of was like, okay, that's sort of new. But in a way, I was glad that I experienced that because that happens quite frequently. So it was a good thing to experience it first off the bat so that I know next time if they're doing maintenance on the tracks and they're closing X amount of stations, I know that I'll have to take this shuttle and go there. So one of the two first places that I went to visit, and I talked about one of them was the National Gallery of Art, and the other one was the National Museum of American History. All right. So when I went, I think I got this at the Museum of Natural History. I got this book. So as I was, I go to the gift shops, that's my thing. And I'm not necessarily looking for books. I'm just looking for something that I can take away. So this was one of those books. Okay. And it's called A Very Washington, D.C., A Celebration of the History and Culture of America's Capital City. And it's written and illustrated. And I think, how I am attracted to book covers. That's what attracted me, the watercolors, because it's written and illustrated by Diana Hollingsworth Gessler. So she did all of these wonderful, wonderful illustrations, watercolors. I love watercolors, okay? So the reason why I'm showing you this book for this episode is because I want you to see where I was, because she has illustrated, there we go. So she has illustrated where I was that Saturday. All right. So see if I can hold this up and get this stuff. Okay. So here's Capitol Hill, right? And so here's the United States Capitol, right? And then right across the street is the Shakespeare. Wait a minute. Let me get my bearing straight here. Okay. All right. So wait, let me start from another way. Okay. So when I got off at the Metro, I was basically here on East Capitol Street, if you can see that. Okay. So the Metro, say, is like here. And so I was walking, and then there's the Shakespeare Library. All right. And it's right behind the Library of Congress right here. Okay. And there's two buildings to library. Two. There's the Jefferson Building and the James Madison Building. All right. So that's what these two buildings are. So there's the Folger Shakespeare Library, and then there is the Capitol. And I was unprepared for the Capitol building. Let me move this a little bit. I was unprepared for the Capitol building because unfortunately, a lot of people's experience who've never been to the DC, their first experience of the Capitol building is watching what that nightmare that unfolded, that insurrection, right? And you see a bunch of lunatics climbing up the walls, right? So that's my experience of the Capitol building, other than seeing it from aerial shots in movies. So after so there's that, and I'll get into that in a minute, right? So that's where we are here in DC, and this is like the first street. So this is the northeast corner of Washington DC. So you can see that the Capitol pretty much anchors it, right? And then there is the Library of Congress. There's the Library of Congress, and there's the Madison Building. And then what really threw me off was the Supreme Court building that's right here. That like knocked me for a loop. And it's a beautiful building. You should see the front. It's palatial. You hear me? But also the United States Capitol building is palatial as well. Right? So, and I will get to the Capitol building because I do have footage of that. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So that's this book sort of is acclimating me to different pockets of DC, like Georgetown and where the Smithsonian Castle is. So here's the map of the National Mall. All right, you always hear me talking about this, right? And actually, I'm going to do the National Mall with footage in a separate episode. Right, and I'm going to use this book as the intro, but this is all the Capitol. This is the National Mall. At one end of the mall, you have the Washington Monument, and then at the other end of the mall, you have the Capitol. So it's the three football fields, which is the National Mall. At least that's how I view it. That's how large it is, and then and this is where you see the National Monument, the obelisk. And then on that, you see the dome of the Capitol. Groovy, right? Absolutely groovy. So you can absolutely ask me, Lisa, why are you interested in the Folger Shakespeare Library? Is it because you're a writer? And I have to tell you, no. I know that's weird for me to say, but that's not the reason why I was attracted and felt compelled to go to the Folger Shakespeare Library. Now, first off, let me tell you, um, the library or museum. I know I've been referring to it as a museum, but it's a library also. There is a library for scholarly research of that Elizabethan age, and we'll get to that in a minute. So, what compelled me to go to Shakespeare's or the Folger Shakespeare Library, and the book that I'm going to share today is very personal to me. And it's one of those rare memories that I have of my father. Because my father wasn't around. Like he left me and my mom when I was about 5, and he would drop in and out of my life, and he really wasn't there. Just simply put, he wasn't there, which is why I've always, when it came to raising my kids as a single parent, I've always sort of remembered that. And so I've always tried to fill in the void of a father not being there when I raised my 2 sons. So on the rare occasions where my father was lucid, because my father suffered from mental illness and he self-medicated through alcohol. And there are very few good memories that I have of my father. That's a fact of life, and I'm not the only one to say this, so I don't feel alone. But he really just, the visits that I would have with him weren't always all that great when I did have access to him, because there was a time when he moved back in with his mother, and I would have to go visit him there. And it wasn't a very pleasant experience. But it was during these visits that he gave me something that, for whatever reason, I've managed to hold on to all these years. And it's this particular item that sort of sparked my interest in the Folger. So I'm going to share it with you now. Now, before I start talking about the Folger, what you should understand is that the library, what's interesting about the library is when Shakespeare died, there was no central place where you could read all of his works, right? He wrote these plays, but he didn't put them together in like a volume, right? So when he passed away, and this is what I learned when I went to visit the library, when he passed away, two of his good friends and fellow actors said, "This is crazy. If we don't get all of his works together, they're going to be lost forever." So these two friends got all of Shakespeare's works together and printed them in a combined volume called a folio. So it's called the first folio of Shakespeare's entire works, all of his sonnets and his plays, right? And there are 68 copies of this printing of this folio of Shakespeare's works, like after he died. And so the Folgers, this married couple, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name. I want to say Henry and Elizabeth Folger, and I will verify that. I'll put the correction here. Let's just, yeah, I'll put the correction here, right? So this married couple, basically, they attended. It's amazing how one thing leads to another. So the Folgers, they attended a lecture by Ralph Waldo Emerson, okay? And he was extolling the virtues of Shakespeare and why Shakespeare is so important. And the Folgers took this lecture to heart, and all of a sudden just started collecting as many works that were out there as possible, and then created this library. And so you see 68 copies of folios of Shakespeare's work that were published using an old printing press. And what's really cool about the library, or the museum part of the library, is that they have an actual printing press in the center. And one of the docents will actually show you what went into printing, because there was a lot of, you won't believe, like we take for granted this digital age that we're in now, in which we can print like that. But back then you had to set type. So there is a docent that's there that will show you how the printer, or a printer, I believe it was a female, it was half listening as I was going around the main core part of where all the folios are showcased. I think it was a female who actually did the printing of the first folio of Shakespeare's work. Now, when you think about the words, the fact that they had to create the type, right? And then have the press to just think about that. And we could thank Johann Gutenberg. I'm getting off topic, but we can thank Johann Gutenberg for that, because without his invention of the printing press, we would not have anything documented. Bravo, Johann Gutenberg, right? So I'm learning all of this now. What's why for me, why Shakespeare? Because my father, during his lucid moments, gave me this. I don't know how he got it, and I would like to rebind it. But this is basically a folio of Shakespeare's works. And I've managed to hold on to it all this time. Never let it out of my sight. Wherever I moved to, it was always put in a box and brought with me. And I have it to this day. And so when I saw the post for a docent, I said, and this is me, and you may come to another conclusion, but for me, I felt as though my father gave this to me, knowing that just about, when did he pass away? He passed away in 1996. So about 25, almost 30 years later, this would be the reason why I would even consider being a docent at the Folger Shakespeare Library. I just felt as though, I could hear my father saying, go for it. Now, again, my father and I did not have I wouldn't say a very good relationship because it was not bad, but it was not very close. And so as I live my life, I'm always ever cognizant that I am my father's daughter. We are very much alike in intellect and curiosity. He is the reason why I know about the Vietnam War because he was a history teacher. And he would, the times when he and I were speaking, he would lecture. He told me about the Vietnam War and everything that went into it. So that when I took a job at a Vietnam Veterans Counseling Center, I wouldn't be ignorant. So I don't know if he told me all these things and I pursued things based on what he told me, or he told me these things and it was my fate to use the information that he gave me for whatever reason. I don't know. But I just felt like this was, and I didn't know that what I had was a folio. This is a folio. All right. And you can see how old this is. And this was published by the Oxford University Press. Here it is right here. I'm going to put it in front of my face so that you can see it. All right. So it has, oops, it has all of his works. And the curious thing is there's no publication date of this issue, right? There should be like a date for this issue. But all it says is that this issue published by Oxford University Press, it was prepared in 1904. I don't know how my father got it. I don't know where he got it from. I don't know who gave it to him, if anything. I think this is one of the very few books of his that I have. And so it has all of the plays, King Henry VI, all three parts of King Henry VI, King Richard III, Titus Andronicus, The Comedy of Errors, The Two Gentlemen of Verona, Love's Labour's Lost, Romeo and Juliet, A Midsummer Night's Dream, King John, Taming of the Shrew, King Richard II, The Merchant of Venice, the first and second parts of King Henry IV, King Henry V, Much Ado About Nothing, The Merry Wives of Windsor, Julius Caesar, As You Like It, Twelfth Night or What You Will, Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, Troilus and Cressida, All's Well That Ends Well, Measure for Measure, Othello, The Moor of Venice, Macbeth, King Lear, Antony and Cleopatra, Coriolanus. I've never heard of that one. Timon of Athens, Pericles, Cymbeline, The Winter's Tale, The Tempest, King Henry VIII. Right, so those are all of his plays, and then his poems, his sonnets, Venus and Adonis, Lucrece, sonnets, A Lover's Complaint, The Passionate Pilgrim, Sonnets to Sundry Notes of Music, and Phoenix and Turtle. So those are the complete works that are in this page, and then there's something from the first folio that was printed. Like I said before, his two friends, after his passing, his two colleagues and friends, said we need to get his stuff together and print it out. It's called the First Folio, and it was published in 1623. So if you go to the museum, you will see, I think it said 68 versions of this First Folio. And I just felt like this was another thing that my father had set up for me to do. That's how I felt. So here you can see, like, this museum or library is absolutely amazing. So this is like you come in, like this is the museum part of it, and then you go upstairs to like the main level, and there's this beautiful chandelier, and I need to go back and find out. Or what I'm going to do is this is the name. This is the chandelier. Here are the pictures of the chandelier, and then this is the name of the artist. Right? I mean, yeah. Okay. So there's the main level, and that's where the carriage house that I mentioned. That's where the carriage house. It's like a pass through. It's very interesting. It's almost Elizabethan in construction because it's like one big hall. And this is the picture of the quill. Oh, what's the name of the quill in the restaurant? The name of the restaurant is the quill and the oh, down below. That's the name of the restaurant. Okay, that's the name of the restaurant. So, and then this is the picture of the restaurant. This is a ceiling. Isn't it insane? And it is very Elizabethan in its construction with the wood paneling and everything like that, right? So I sit and I have a meal. It's very nice, very quiet. And then, like, right next door to it is the library, where they have not just Shakespeare's works, but works that are from the Elizabethan age, from that time period. So that if you're going to do research on Shakespeare, you need to research what was going on during that time. And that's what the library has. So, this is the library. Oh my days. I just stood, excuse me. I just stood there in total awe of its splendor, of its magnificence, right? And it also reminds me of Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, because I worked at Trinity College as an administrative assistant for the gift planning department. And they have a chapel, Trinity Chapel, that is very Gothic in nature. And when I was sitting in that restaurant in the Quill Inn, it reminded me of the I almost wanted to hear Mozart's Requiem, as I was, that's the that vibe, that Elizabethan Gothic vibe of heavy wood paneling and huge dome ceilings and cross beams and flying buttresses and all kinds of really cool architectural uh, parts of the architectural features of a building. That's what it reminded me of. So here's the library, and then there's like a plaque, and then I meant to take a picture of the Folgers. Their portraits are in there as well. I know it's Henry, and I want to say I know it's not Elizabeth. I know that's not her name. I can't remember. Uh, so that that was how I spent my Saturday. And here's the weird part. So I don't know if you people have noticed, but weather prediction has not been all that accurate. There was a certain point in time where weather forecasts were really accurate, like right down to when the rain would start. And quite recently, it has not been that accurate. Plus, I've been getting conflicting information, conflicting in that I have Google Home Monitor for my doorbell camera. And you can set daily automations on it, like if you want stuff to shut down or turn on at a particular time of the day. And so I have an automation to wake me up in the morning. It's my alarm clock. And one of the things that I have it read out to me is the weather. So I know, if I want to go for a walk, if I want to go anywhere, if it's going to rain, I need to know. So that morning, I didn't have, it was Saturday, naturally, no alarm, but I noticed that it's been highly inaccurate lately. And I noticed that it's not jiving with my Apple. How you can get the widget, the weather widget. It's not jiving with my Apple weather widget. They'll be off by degrees. And what I'm noticing is that they're not predicting rain. So when I went on Saturday, I deliberately looked at my weather widget the day before, no signs of rain. So when I went to the Shakespeare Library, when I came out, it was so hot. It was oppressive, really, really oppressive. And I was sweating like a racehorse. And I did not bring my parasol. I don't know why I didn't, but I thought it was going to remain cloudy, but not in DC. So it was so oppressive. And I went and walked around the area. And then this is the second part of this episode. After I left the Folger building and I walked past the Library of Congress, that's when I noticed how close I was to the Capitol. And so I took a walk to the Capitol, and this is here it is right here. This is my first exposure to the Capitol. So I'm walking around. I just came from the Folger Shakespeare Library, which was an amazing experience. And so I'm walking around because I signed up to get a library card from the Library of Congress, right? So I knew that the Library of Congress is close to the Congressional or Capitol building, duh. But I wasn't prepared for what I came across. Check this out. The Capitol building. Now, we always see this thing like in movies, but it's quite different to see it in person. It's fucking awesome, I gotta say. This is absolutely gorgeous. These gorgeous fountains, okay? Just like, oh my days. And this is a part of the Capitol building. All of this is the Capitol building. Quite incredible when you think about all that happened here. The insanity happened around a building like this. Incredible. Amazing. God bless America. Right? So I was just blown away. Like, these idiots scaled this beautiful, beautiful building to do the foolishness that they did. I just couldn't match one with the other. And the sky started to clear by that time, you can see. And so they have all these beautiful white fluffy clouds, beautiful blue skies, and this magnificent creature of a building. I call it a creature, but this magnificent architectural just wonder. I just was moved by it. And behind me, and I didn't get footage of it. So as you saw from that footage, I'm basically facing the Capitol, the Dome building. But behind me and to my right was the Supreme Court building, the US Supreme Court. And when I go back, I will go back and I will, still go back to this book, and I will go back and take footage of the Supreme Court building, because you really have to see it. It's absolutely amazing. So I wanted so there's a visitor center to, like, if you're facing the Capitol, it's to your left, and it's underground. And I was going to go for a visit. And then I saw Capitol Police with flak jackets and a weapon, and I don't know. It sort of just killed my enthusiasm a little bit, just remembering of all that went on there. It was, yeah, it was a mood killer to see that. Although I know that they're there for our protection and the protection of the Capitol. It's just having seen the insanity of that January 6th episode was just kind of put me off a bit. But next time when I do go exploring, and I will go back exploring because, um, I will, do some footage, and I'll show you how amazing the Supreme Court building is. And this is what I found out, and it's in this book, right? So wait a minute, let me read this off to you because this was amazing to me. I didn't know that this was a thing. So where is it? Okay, all right. So this is the page out of this book about the US Supreme Court. All right, the building right now. Here's the interesting part. Check this out. The court hears up to 4 1-hour arguments a day, 3 days a week, 2 weeks a month. Sessions begin in October, and visitors may attend oral arguments by forming 2 lines in front of the building, one for an entire argument, the other for a 3-minute observation. Check it, right? So, yes, I'm going to check it out and see if this is still, because this book was published in 2009. So it is everything's still like everything in here is still up, up to date as far as like no monuments have walked off the National Mall, all right? No buildings have crumbled, right? So everything is pretty much up to date as far as things to see in DC. But I'm wondering, like, since COVID hit, if that has changed. So I'm going to find that out. And if there is an argument, guess what I'll be doing? Now, this thing, it drifts. It's drifting on its own. See it? It's drifting. And I'm not doing anything. And it's not following me on top of that, which is really annoying. So, yeah, that caught my attention. I was like, oh, snap. See, it keeps drifting. It's not me. All right. So another thing that I want to show you from this book is how it talks about the Folger Shakespeare Library. See how beautiful this is all laid out? I love this book. I think it's beautifully done. Right. So here's the blurb on the Folger Shakespeare Library, which is what I should have read at the very beginning. So here's the blurb on the Folger. A lecture by Ralph Waldo Emerson in 1879 at Amherst College sparked Henry C. Folger's lifelong obsession with Shakespeare. By the time Folger retired as president of Standard Oil, he and his wife, Emily, it was an E, I knew it was an E, Emily. By the time Folger retired as president of Standard Oil, he and his wife, Emily, were looking for a place to house their personal Shakespeare collection, the world's largest. Okay, so yeah, and also I'm going to show you something that's really amazing, and this is why this building is 3 stories high, or part of the reason. So after you come out of the quill, and it's not quill and pen, it's something different. Can't remember. So there's the quill and the restaurant. On the other side of that is the library. Now, as you come out of the front of the restaurant, not the rear, because the rear leads you to the carriage house and then to offices. As you come out of the restaurant, if you look to your right, which I did, I discovered something amazing. Inside this library / museum is also a theater, an Elizabethan theater, right? So here's here's the theater. Like, this is the entrance, and you go in, and then this is the theater, and they put on plays. So I'm I'm going to check their schedule and see when is their next performance. I think the season is. I think they're on a break during the summer, and then they start back up in the fall, if I remember correctly. So I'm going to check that out. That's something for me to do, and sort of immerse myself back in Shakespeare again. Now, you may ask me, have I ever read any Shakespeare? And the answer is yes. And that's, again, thanks to my father, because when he gave me this folio, he said, and I thought that Shakespeare would be way over my head, and that's why nothing about Shakespeare ever, made me want to read it. But when my father gave me this folio, his advice to me was this, and it was twofold. Number one, start with the comedies. The comedies are easier than the dramas. Number two, do not try to translate the words. It is in a different type of English that was spoken. And there is, I think, if I remember correctly, the language of Shakespeare wasn't how they spoke, right? So this was basically theater language, or drama language, performance language, not necessarily language that's spoken on a daily basis. So my father said, do not try to translate or try to figure out. Just read it. And if you read it, you will eventually get the gist of what's happening and who's the dirty person, who's, so that's what he said. So he said, start with the, as you like it. What's another one? Let me go to the videotape. He said to start with the comedies. So those comedies would be, so the comedies would be like A Midsummer Night's Dream, The Comedy of Errors. Another one, he said, All's Well That Ends Well. That's another one of his sort of like light comedies. I think Measure for Measure is another one. Much Ado About Nothing and The Merry Wives of Windsor. As You Like It and Twelfth Night. I think those are the ones he said that I should start off with, and then get into the more heavier ones, like the King Henry plays, the King Richard plays, Hamlet, Othello, all of those. Now, Cymbeline, I cannot, or I think I'm saying that right, Cymbeline, I think that is one of his lighter works, his lighter plays. So yeah, that falls under that as well. And Taming of the Shrew, is a notorious comedy, but it's still one of the ones that start off with first and then get into the heavier stuff. So I actually did what he said to do, and I remember, and it's probably why this you can see how this is all busted and really needs to be be what's the word I'm looking for, recovered. Recovered. It really needs to be rebound. That's the word I'm looking for. It needs to be rebound. But when I got to college, my father had passed away by that time. And I was, I think I've said before, I wanted to go into journalism. So I majored in English. And in my first semester, one of the classes that I took was a drama class. And I remember reading Othello in that class. As a matter of fact, I still have the paperback that I bought for that course. And I can't remember, I think I read other stuff for that class, other Yeah, I read other plays, but I don't think I read any other Shakespeare plays. I think Othello was one of them. And as for reading in high school, I don't remember. I don't recall. Mm-mm. All right. So that wraps up this episode of Behind the Green Screen, sharing something very, very close to my heart. Um, and I'm surprised that I didn't start crying. Very good. You know what that means? You know what that means, don't you? It means I moved on. It doesn't affect me like it used to. That means I'm growing. There you go. All right. So if you want to get a copy of this book, again, it's up to date as far as the landmarks. Somehow or other, they even knew back in 2009 that there was going to be an African American History and Culture Museum that didn't open until 2016, and it is included in this book, in a book that was published in 2009. Yeah, wrap your head around that for a second. I don't know who this chick was, but she was got her finger on the pulse of something for her to find that out and incorporate it into the book. So here's this book again, A Very Washington, D.C., a celebration of the history and culture of America's capital city. And it's written and illustrated by Diana Hollingsworth Gessler. All right. So I'm going to be using that book again, probably twice over, because I want to introduce you to the National Mall. Yes, I do want to introduce you to the mall. I want you to see it. If you can't be down here, then let me show you bits and pieces of it. Okay, indulge me, and I'll cover a book. I'll cover a book. Absolutely. All right. Okay. So let's keep it moving, people. Yeah, I've been doomsday scrolling, and yeah, the news ain't good. But you know what? We're gonna be all right. So let's do our mantra. Okay. All is well. Everything is working for my highest good. Out of this experience, only good will come. I am safe. Namaste. See you next time.